All right, Verona, here we come. Buckle up for a deep dive into Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet.
The ultimate love story.
With feuds.
And did we mention the drama?
Seriously dramatic twists and turns. But look, even if you aced Shakespeare back in the day,
You might want to stick around.
we're about to uncover details, like those little hidden gems.
The kind that'll make you the Romeo and Juliet expert at your next dinner party.
Exactly.
Everyone will be like, wow, how do you know so much?
And you'll be like, oh, it's just this deep dive I'm into. So no SparkNote summaries here. We're going straight to the source.
The original text full of all its juicy details.
Roger Gutenberg, our Shakespearean playground for the day.
Excellent choice. Because you know what they say.
The real magic's in the detail.
Absolutely. Shakespeare's brilliance. It's all in the nuance, the language itself.
So true. Okay, let's dive right into Acti, shall we? The scene opens with all this banter between the servants. It's almost comical, really. But it immediately throws us into the thick of this simmering feud between the Montagues and Capulets. I mean, one of them actually says, I will bite my thumb at them, sir.
Can you imagine the sheer audacity?
It's a bit much, right? But it makes you think, what's the point of clinging to so much anger for so long?
That right there, that's the million-dollar question that resonates throughout the entire play. This ancient grudge, as Shakespeare so eloquently puts it, it creates this climate of, suspicion everywhere.
Yeah.
Hostility, too, and ends up impacting every single character. Think about it. Holding on to hatred, it has serious consequences, even generations later, wouldn't you say?
Totally. This isn't just some silly little disagreement. This is serious stuff. It's poisoned the entire social fabric of Verona.
Exactly.
And speaking of poison, enter Romeo, right? Head over heels for Rosaline. He's all dramatic, love is a smoke made with the fume of sighs. Madness. You know how he gets.
Oh, yes, Romeo.
Yeah.
Always the tortured soul. How would I sum him up? He's utterly consumed by love, or at least his idea of it.
Right. Dramatic much.
But you have to understand, we can't forget the whole context of courtly love. Think knights, ladies, these grand gestures, off unrequited passion. It was all the rage back then.
Right.
And Romeo. He fits that bill perfectly. Ironically, this over-the-top heartache for Rosaline, it actually makes his sudden shift to Juliet, a little more believable, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, that's a good point. It's like he's primed for this, grand passion.
Exactly.
And bam, enter Juliet.
Talk about an entrance.
Right at the Capulet feast. And when Romeo sees her, he's blown away. She doth teach the torches to burn bright.
Shakespeare always did have a way with words.
Right, that imagery. Talk about love at first sight. But of course, it can't be that simple, can it? Because guess who else is at the party?
Let me get. Oh, I know. It's Tybalt, right?
Tybalt.
Of course. Who else?
Juliet's cousin. And he is not happy.
Not happy at all.
At all. He spots Romeo and is ready to throw down the...
He's second. He's like a walking powder keg.
Right. It's the mere presence of a Montague just sets him off.
Talk about holding a grudge.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes just how deep this hatred runs and how quickly violence can spiral out of control.
So true. But here's where it gets interesting. Lord Capulet, Juliet's dad, he actually steps in and tells Tybalt to chill. He even says some nice things about Romeo's character. What's up with that? What do you make of Capulet's reaction? Is he being wise, naive? What's the deal?
Now that is a fascinating glimpse into his character, wouldn't you say? And the whole web of societal expectations back then. He's clearly a man who values order, decorum.
At least in that moment.
For now. At least on the surface, he seems to be trying to keep things civilized. Which makes his reaction to Tybalt's outburst even more intriguing. It's like he's trying to hold a magnifying glass over a volcano.
Right.
You just know it's going to erupt eventually.
Yeah.
But in this moment, you see this stark contrast between Capulet's restraint and Tybalt's impulsiveness.
Totally.
And it highlights how differently people react to this deep-seated conflict, even within the same family.
It's all about to hit the fan.
Oh, yeah.
But for now, Romeo and Juliet, they sneak off for that super famous balcony scene. Oh, Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou Romeo?
Classic. Such a loaded question, though, isn't it? Most people don't realize it's not really about his name. I mean, she knows who he is.
Right.
She's actually lamenting the fact that he has to be a Montague. That one word represents everything that separates them.
Whoa, I never thought about it like that. But their love, they just go for it. Passionate vows and all.
That's the thing about young love, isn't it?
Yeah.
So intoxicating, but it's also fueled by this urgency, the secrecy, the feud. And that's a dangerous combination.
No kidding. They don't waste any time, do they? Act 2, they're getting hitched. Secretly, thanks to Friar Lawrence. But even with all the romance, Juliet, she's pretty level-headed. If I bent of love be honorable, thy purpose marriage, send me word tomorrow. I mean, she's not exactly swept off her feet completely, is she?
That line right there, that's Juliet in a nutshell. She's not just along for the ride. She's taking control, making her own choices, which, let's be real, was pretty bold for a young woman in those times. Don't you think?
Well, totally. But the friar agreeing to the whole secret marriage thing, isn't that a bit reckless?
Friar Lawrence, always
Very,
the
very
wild card. Centuries later, people are still debating his motivations. Was it genuine hope? Did he really believe their love could bridge this massive divide? Or was he, I don't know, maybe a little desperate himself for a solution? Makes you think, doesn't it?
It does, like good intentions, right? But sometimes they backfire.
Sometimes spectacularly.
And if things weren't complicated enough already, cue the epic showdown. Mercutio, Tybalt, Romeo, it's like a recipe for disaster.
You could cut the tension with a knife.
Right. And Mercutio, I mean, love that guy, always with the witty comebacks. But those dying words, a plague of both your houses. Talk about ominous.
That line sends chills down my spine every time. Mercutio's death, it's pivotal. He's not even really part of this core family feud, yet he's ultimately consumed by it. It just goes to show, hatred like that, it doesn't discriminate.
So true. And Romeo, he just snaps, right?
Yeah.
Kills Tybalt, gets banished. One terrible thing leading to another.
That's where the play takes this incredibly dark turn. Romeo, who starts off as this lovesick romantic, he's now defined by violence. It's like he's becoming a product of the very world he's desperate to escape with Juliet.
And then Act 3, Juliet's world, it just crumbles.
Shakespeare was a master of dramatic irony. I mean, we know she's not really dead, which makes Romeo's despair all the more, well, unbearable.
And that scene in the tomb, heartbreaking, he sees her, thinks she's gone, and takes his own life. How do you even begin to process that level of grief?
Romeo's suicide, it's complex. It's love, sure, but it's also impulsiveness, desperation, this feeling of being trapped by fate. It makes you question, how much control do we really have over our lives?
Yeah.
And how much is already decided for us?
Such a heavy question, right? And then there's Juliet. She wakes up, finds Romeo dead. Can you imagine? Her whole world shattered. Again. And she follows him in death.
That final act, it's incredibly powerful. Some might say it's the ultimate act of love, a refusal to live without him. But others, they see it as despair, maybe even a final act of defiance in a world where she had so little control. What do you think?
I don't know. It's hard to say. It's both heartbreaking and, like you said, defiant all at the same time. It sticks with you. And then the families, they finally reconcile, but it's too late. They've lost everything.
The ultimate tragedy, right? Their hate, the feud that defined generations, it finally ends. But at what cost?
Seriously, it gets you right in the feels.
Every single time.
But that's the power of Shakespeare, right? He's not afraid to go there. Life, death, all the messy bits in between.
And just when you think you know the story, something jumps out at you.
Right.
Take Romeo's whole thing with Rosalind, for example.
Oh, yeah.
Some scholars actually believe she wasn't even real. Like she never existed outside of Romeo's head.
What?
They argue Shakespeare created her to basically showcase Romeo's capacity for intense emotion, which then makes his love for Juliet even more wet.
Explosive.
Exactly. Like it sets the stage for a love that can shake the very foundations of Verona.
And speaking of things that shake things up, who can forget Mercutio's wild Queen Mab speech?
Oh man, that speech is something else.
Talk about a mischievous fairy. She controls dreams, whispers in people's ears. It's playful and kind of creepy all at the same time.
So true.
It's a total head-scratcher. Is Mercutio just messing around? Or is Shakespeare giving us a glimpse into something bigger? Like fate, destiny, forces beyond our control.
That's what I love about Shakespeare. Every line, every image, it's like there's this hidden depth waiting to be explored. No wonder Romeo and Juliet still resonates with audiences today, hundreds of years later. It's timeless. And it's not just about the plot, right? It's like Shakespeare holds up this mirror to humanity. We see ourselves in these characters, the joy, the heartbreak, the bad decisions.
And we've all made those.
Haven't we all? It makes you wonder what Shakespeare would think, if he could see the impact of his work all these centuries later.
If we could ask him just one question about Romeo and Juliet, who would it be?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'd probably ask him about his intentions for the ending. Did he want us to leave the theater with hope? Like maybe things will be different for the next generation.
Or was he saying, no, this cycle of violence, it's inescapable?
Exactly. I guess, like with all great art, the answer lies somewhere within each of us.
We bring our own experiences, our own interpretations to the story, and that's what keeps it alive.
Exactly. Because Romeo and Juliet, it's not a play that gives you all the answers. It makes you think. It makes you feel. And most importantly, it keeps those conversations going.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive here, we'll leave you with this. What speaks to you most in Romeo and Juliet? What questions are still swirling around in your mind? Keep exploring, keep thinking, and keep the spirit of Shakespeare alive.